Do you ever look at the cross? Has there ever been a day when you looked at that and thought about how absurd it was? Do you ever look at the cross and think about how strange and even kind of borderline creepy it is that this is the standard of our religion and it's the symbol of everything that we hold dear? Because if we shifted time and Jesus was executed today, would we think it was odd to find his followers wearing little stylized death chamber gurneys around their necks? Or would it seem odd to hang an electric chair up on the wall in front of the sanctuary? I mean no disrespect by asking that, because it's hard for us to realize today that 1800 or 1900 years ago, when Christians first began to venerate the symbol of the cross, that was the sort of baggage that it carried with it. Because this isn't just a benign wooden symbol. It's not a representation of a letter T or anything else that it might look like. But this represents the instrument, the device upon which the body of Jesus was nailed and then stripped naked and left to die in the sun with all of the humiliation and the pain and the agony that implies. Citizens of Rome and all of those others in the Mediterranean basin who lived with the foot of Rome on their throats understood what the cross really was. They understood it, and when they thought about it, if they thought about it at all, it was to hope fervently that the day would never come when they or somebody they cared about ended up on one of these. It was an awful and degrading way to die. Roman citizens couldn't be crucified. The empire reserved crucifixion for foreign subjects who broke the law and for slaves who rebelled and the occasional traitor. And this limitation spoke volumes because it said that the empire, as hard and brutal and coldly calculating as it was, viewed the prospect of crucifixion with such horror that it chose not to inflict it on its own citizens. People of other countries, sure, they could be nailed up wholesale. They could be crucified by the thousands, and they were. But no Roman citizen would ever endure the ignominy of the cross. I suppose it was the empire's way of trying to appear warm and fuzzy to its citizens. There was a building in Rome. It was called the Domus Galatiana. It dated back to about the time when the Christian movement was struggling to be born. This building was taken over by the Emperor Caligula, who was a man who may carry the great look like a choir boy if you know anything about him. And then it became a boarding school for attendants to the imperial court. And then it was basically sealed up and buried to serve as a foundation for bigger and better things. Now, 150 years ago, the Domus Galatiana was opened up again for the first time in well over 1,000 years, and one of the things that archaeologists found was this marking on the wall. This picture was first published in 1898 in a book about recent discoveries in Rome. Now, because it's a photograph, it's kind of hard to tell what it is. But here's a drawing of the same graffito. Graffito is singular graffiti, by the way. So you can see what it was. At least it's easier to see. It's pretty crude. It's not exactly a work of art. You know, it's not Michelangelo or anything like that. And you can also see that there's writing. And that writing is Greek. And it means, next slide, Alexamenos worships his God. In case you don't get the whole picture here, this isn't really a piece of religious art because this crucified God is crucifying figure. It's certainly in the shape of a man. It's got the two arms and the two legs, but it has the head of a donkey. And if you look on his left side, it's kind of interesting. It looks like it may even be a spear wound. Trying to duplicate what was done to Jesus. But it's on the wrong side since he's facing away. It's a detail that they could get wrong. And then over on the left side of the picture, there's this Alexamenos, who's probably a recent convert to Christianity. He's worshiping God up on the cross. The reading from 1 Corinthians began today. It said, "The wisdom of the cross is foolish." Now, this bit of ridicule is a bit of low art directed at mocking the religious beliefs of Alexamenos and all of the Christians like him. It captures the struggle of the non-Christian to understand the Christian faith in a hard world. Because it makes no sense. It doesn't make any sense by worldly standards. It makes no sense that a father would send his son, or that his son would agree to be sent on a mission to save a sinful and broken and willful and stubborn people like us. And it makes no sense that this mission of salvation would involve being born powerless and then gathering powerless men and women as your followers and expecting them to establish and grow your faith. Not to mention the true and utter horror of betrayal and humiliation and death on a Roman cross. What kind of religion is born of death and thrives in weakness and survives solely on the power of persuasion? Those are questions we might ask, but it's the wisdom of the foolish. Maybe Christianity embraces the wisdom of the foolish, because it's the kind of wisdom that doesn't rely on what you've learned, but on how you've changed. It doesn't rely on all of the things that you might know about this world, but it relies on how you've grown in the Spirit after you've established your relationship with Christ. It's the kind of religion that doesn't rely on the power of what can be done to somebody, but what could be done for somebody. And this wisdom doesn't just apply to church. It's not just a religion, really, but it's a world view. And it relies on the weakness that is really the strength not to exercise power against someone else's will. Not to exercise power, but instead to bring them peacefully into harmony, peacefully into a relationship with Jesus. And in a secular world, I suppose it's easy to see this as foolish. In a world where bad things happen, and we sometimes have to struggle to reconcile what happens to and around us with our own faith, let alone try to influence others. It's easy to look at the emphasis on service as being just more wasted effort and more wasted time. Wasted time that could be spent doing something for me or for my family or for the people I care about, not all those other people out there. What sense does that make? What sense does it make to care? And the world's answer is it doesn't make sense at all. I think that's the wrong question. I think that's what Paul was getting at. It doesn't have to make sense. It's not supposed to make sense in the framework of what we loosely call the real world. It's kind of reminding them of the wisdom of the cross. It's this. That Jesus had enough power to surrender himself to others. He had enough strength to to allow himself to be nailed to that cross and left to die. And he had enough love to look down from the cross at those who had put him there. Let's be honest, he was looking down at us too, because we all had a hand in it through our sins. He looked down and said, Father, forgive them. The world might see that as foolish. And that's okay, because we know the truth. The world may see that as nonsensical, and that's okay. Because we know that true power is not about bending somebody to your will, but about taking them into your heart. True power is not about convincing them that they are wrong, but about leading them into a relationship with Christ. It's about showing them that Jesus paid for them. It's not about the cross in the end, but it's about the love that led to it and the salvation that sprang from it. I don't know about you, but I'll take truth over power. I will take truth over wisdom.